IVM.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Simplified. And this is four people talking about nothing at all. Oftentimes, yeah.
It's four men talking, okay?
Four men talking, sorry.
Yeah.
Four men talking. We're not even people, actually, yeah. Yeah.
Actually, now
Already
the
been
frame
pre-cancelled.
Yeah, we've been pre-cancelled, yeah.
we are actually four men, and looking at Tony's background, four men and a goat.
Yeah. Oh, wow, well played, yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who who are listening and can't see, Tony is actually in Kerala, so he's literally on his farm. Behind him, there's a cow. There is a orangutan,
There is
and of course there is a cow. There is a cow.
There is a cow.
Excellent reference. Excellent reference. Those who know will know. Anyway, we have spoken. We have said that we are four men. We have talked about a goat and a cow, so people will have absolutely no idea what this show is actually about.
If for those still interested in the realms of sanity, Tony has a picture of Virat Kohli at the back, and that's the goat reference. Go on, Tony. You were saying
this morning I actually opened my eyes and I saw my daughter sitting on the bed and smiling at me, and I was like, I'm fairly sure I've missed my 6:30 alarm, and I thought I'd in fact missed the recording altogether. But then apparently she's been awake since 5 a.m. So have you guys ever missed an alarm really badly?
I think I did it in the last recording.
I've done it for flights.
So
I've done it for flights.
Things of consequence.
I've had the classic did not study at all, had last minute preparation.
Again, things of consequence. Things of consequence. This is below simplified. I can't.
Did you study for the exam? Did you study for the exam? Option mein choda tha.
This actually worked out to be weirdly. I almost compensated for my slightly lackluster academic past. This was during my undergrad, and it was an American literature paper. And I missed my alarm. I woke up like half an hour before the exam, so rushed down to the exam and got an A.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to think of a time when I missed something of consequence. But since Naren said missed a flight, my best flight missing story was when I had when I was working, interesting enough, at Ogilvy in 2013 or 14. For some reason, somebody had asked me to fly to Jaipur to interview Rahul Dravid and VVS Lakshman.
I remember that.
I was so confident that you needed to get into an airport only half an hour before the flight. I have no idea why I had this misplaced sense of confidence that I left Ogilvy only about an hour before. I stopped on the way to get printouts, that thing that's signed by. So, casually, and I walked in. Absolutely, the flight is half an hour. The flight is going. We have closed everything. Then and I called up the client and said, I might not be able to come because I missed my flight. And they absolutely lost it. Thankfully, I managed to find another flight, paid an exorbitant amount for it. So I haven't missed a flight, but maybe I should just.
I wouldn't say I got late for it, but I did one flight booking where I confused AM and PM. And for AM, for PM, and I think Chuck, you only booked me a replacement flight from home. But I reached confidently 7 p.m. around 6 p.m. reached the airport, and I show it to the guard, and he looks at me and says, "Sir, ये flight सुबह को निकल गई." I'm like, oh shit.
That's an epic fail.
Yeah, Indian security guards are just so. I have had this again another time. I was going for Chuck's wedding actually to Kochi. And we turn up at the airport, and I was waiting for the flight. And then we go to the gate. We are happily waiting, and we go to the gate. The guard literally holds on to me, turns me, calls the cab, and says, "International airport jana hai, jaldi jao."
Wow. The latest flight I've caught is 15 minutes before takeoff.
Wow.
And
wow.
There I had to actually literally, it is a once in a lifetime thing that happened because I played the card saying, listen, it was at 9 in the night and I said, it's my birthday tomorrow. I have to be there. And like they could see it on the ID card, right? And then
right.
the person
They
at the
checked your
counter was-
Aadhaar.
Yeah, they're like,
and
oh
they
yeah, he's
confirmed
not
for
lying.
fetching.
Like it is his birthday tomorrow. So
Oh, nice.
and she was very nice enough to like get me on the flight somehow.
Oh,
so.
that's sweet.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very sweet. So fake Aadhaar card is all you need when you are close to missing your flight. So I should have printed that out. Tony, when you were saying that with that tone, right? I know you enough to know when a joke is coming. So I thought you were going to say the last flight that I missed was a flight of fancy. That was really what I was expecting. Anyway,
Those are the only flights that are available now, actually. Flights.
Wow.
Excellent.
So in Woodhouse, how, people, guys drones refer to other drones as birds. This bird told me that bird told me that. And so if you miss your flight, I guess you're a flightless bird. So
Were you flying to New Zealand by any chance? That would complete the joke.
Yeah, that
Oh
would.
my God.
Naren, I
droned
think
on.
we've taken the spirit of the
Yeah,
episode.
we've droned on and
Droned
on, and we
Yeah.
should segue into our main topic, which are...
Yeah, but hang on, before we get into that, shall we do the profundity?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
of course,
so the profundity is pretty short, sweet, and simple for today. There's a classic picture of two kids enjoying in the rain. They're dancing out in the heavy rain. But obviously, as with Indian forwards, they need to be not only profound, but also topical. So this one is basically a picture of those two kids dancing in the rain. And in that, the copy is, God is sanitizing everything with his showers of blessings. Good morning.
Wow, what a beautiful
Wow.
one.
I don't know. I don't know what I can say there without at least one set of people being offended. So I'm recusing myself from commenting on this.
Yeah.
Sometimes we should just let the profundity stand.
or float in this case. Like I don't know why, but I am thinking of a moment in a swimming pool when suddenly something becomes
Come
warm.
on, Chuck, God is sanitized everything with shower. Let's keep seeing.
Yeah, but ozone swimming pool hasn't. No.
So let's keep the simplified sanitized as well and move on quickly to the topic, which is what, Naren?
Yeah, it is delivery drones. So we delivered all kinds of drones. And
I swear, I once had this Amazon guy who came and he just wouldn't stop talking. Oh, wait, that's not what you're talking about.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so delivery drones are something for some obscure reason I got very fascinated by. I think it's because I read this last year that the Maharashtra government was going to team up with a company called Zipline and deliver drugs and medicines and things like that to people in interior Maharashtra. And Serum Institute was the other partner. And COVID came along and all those plans seem to have vanished. I can't find anything about it. But drones are fascinating, and it's really opening a door, into it is offering a solution to delivery problems. It obviously drones started like everything, all good thing in life, started out with military things in mind. So the best inventions are those, the best inventions are those which help you kill other people, right? So it's like one of my friends used to have a T-shirt: join the army, see the world, meet a lot of interesting people, and kill them. So, this is how. So I was reading up about drones, and I thought we should just sort of chat about it. Firstly, drones. Did you know how the term drone originated? Like why are drones called drones? I mean, we all know they are. Drones are the male of the bee.
Yeah, that's what I would assume, that male of the bee.
Yeah, but why should a flying unmanned aerial vehicle be called
sir, I have answer. It is short for driving on new elevation.
Well played. No, it's the wrong answer, but full marks for imagination.
Is it an acronym?
No, it's not an acronym. Yeah.
That driving on this thing sounds like a retronym.
Yeah.
Acronym.
It's
retronym itself a retronym. Oh, no.
It's a pre-World War. It's a pre-World War thing. So there was this company called De Havilland, and De Havilland was a company that made planes. It made a plane called Queen Bee, which was a pilotless, a pilotless radio-controlled plane without a cockpit. It was used for target practice for gunners in the Navy. So
not Arsenal. Okay.
Yeah, not Arsenal. Yeah. So they would.
They wouldn't hit it even if they tried.
Wow, burn.
Unmanned flight is probably a good assessment of Arsenal at this point in time.
So this it was called a DH-82, and it was called a Queen Bee, and it was in reference to. So then people started calling it a drone because drones would make just one flight. The drone's sole purpose was, I think, made with a bee or something like that.
Yeah.
So you just mate with a bee and then die. So anyway, Havilland built about 400, of which around 300 were in service at the start of the Second World War. But actual, unmanned aerial vehicles, if you want to call them that, were the earliest documented version was in 1849. And this is like an epic fail because this was the Imperial Austrian Army deciding to invade Venice. And Venice was proving very stubborn. This was in 1849. And what some bright guy in the Austrian army decided that they would besiege Venice and they would send balloons filled with incendiary things. So in back in the days, it would probably be firewood and a little bit of kindling.
I thought like messages that say your pizza sucks or something.
That would have got Venice to surrender straight away. So,
shit posting.
Oh God. But unfortunately, Tony wasn't on the Austrian side at that time. And so these guys launched 200 of them. 200 balloons with sort of flammable material in it, probably already on fire. Idea being that they would go to Venice, they would descend and start burning building. And as luck would have it, the wind direction changed and all those balloons came back and landed on the ship Volcano, which
of course.
So complete epic fail. And that stopped all development on UAVs till the,
But on the bright side, this story led to the development of several Tom and Jerry episodes. So.
Tom and Jerry, Wile E. Coyote.
Roadrunner,
yeah, all that shit.
And so the other luminary, so this Nikola Tesla meme, right? He invented everything. So he also invented drones.
Elon Musk.
Yeah. Oh. So he didn't actually invent them, but he described a fleet of uncrewed aerial combat vehicles way back in 1915, which is pretty visionary. He's like the Leonardo da Vinci of modern times. And okay, that gives you an idea of how old I am, that 1915 is modern times. Yeah. So he inspired the construction of something called the Kettering bug by a guy named Charles Kettering in Dayton, Ohio. Then this was picked up by another unusual and interesting character named Reginald Denny. So Reginald Denny was an actor. He was a regular actor, acted in plays, acted in movies, was a supporting actor in, right up to 50s and 60s. And he had a company which manufactured and developed drones, like what we now know as drones. And then he vanished into the sunlight. He died in 65 or 66 something. And then then the bad days of the Cold War started, right? So that's when things really started getting, people started seeing the plus side. And it started with the US because US, they didn't have all that many people who are willing to die in the service of the country. So they
despite the t-shirts.
The interesting people.
And so they had they had these skirmishes all the time with the Soviet Union. So they had one of these U-2 bombers flying in a reconnaissance mission over Russian airspace, and it got shot down by the Soviets. So then these guys said that enough is enough. We have to start using uncrewed aircraft. And it was a highly classified program, highly classified. So they started employing it, and just around that time, by the end of that decade, the Vietnam War started. So now these guys started deploying that because Vietnamese people were very stubborn. They didn't want anything to do with American liberating forces, and they were not afraid of dying. So they would just stand there and shoot all the planes, right? And don't mind dying themselves. So these guys started deploying unmanned aerial vehicles. So Vietnam War was all kinds of bad, and if I strongly recommend that people read about the horrors of that time. Is generally how bad war is and how difficult it is to kill people. So we just have this romanticized idea of war. You go with your fleet and you train your guns at someone and they all surrender, but they don't. People they don't mind dying. They don't want you. And then you say, okay, I'm going to call your bluff, and you start killing people. And you kill more and more people and they still don't want to die. And by the time you give up, you find that you've killed like millions of people. So that's the standard template for most wars. And
I think Full Metal Jacket is one good movie on this.
Full Metal Jacket. Okay. I haven't seen it, but I will.
It's a nice movie.
Yeah. So anyway, these guys used a very highly classified UAV, which the Chinese government downed. And when they showed, then they published photographs of it. And US official response was no comment. So, but by the time it was clear that they were using, and then
so it was a crude, uncrewed vehicle.
Yeah, crude, uncrewed.
Wow.
Yeah. Then these guys used it, the Israelis, and they become like world masters in military unmanned aerial vehicle thing. And that was something called the Yom Kippur War, which was a fascinating thing. Arab states got together and decided to invade Israel, and they managed to invade it as well. And after 6 days, they got their asses kicked primarily because of UAVs. So what these guys started doing was, so these people, Arabs, had bought a lot of really expensive anti-aircraft missiles from the Soviet Union. So the plan was Israel would fly their jets in and these guys would shoot it down. But Israel started flying these unmanned, really cheapo unmanned wooden aircraft into it. And these guys would use up their missiles to shoot them. So after about 6 days, all their missiles were gone and they were left with a huge gaping bill, which they had to pay to the Soviet Union to buy. And that was the end of the war. Yeah.
A very interesting thing about the Israeli decision-making system, especially when the Yom Kippur War that you talked about, following which also the 1972 Munich massacre happened. So Israel, as a country, obviously born out of some of the most horrific events that man has known in the Holocaust of the World War II. They actually, after the Yom Kippur War, which they weren't anticipating and initially led to an invasion, and then the Munich massacre, have developed a system of decision making where based on these unforeseen horrific events, which they call the 12th man system, where there are 11 people. So they have a council of 12 people who are making a decision, and say there is a very, very unlikely scenario. So, for example, tomorrow, one of the Arab states will launch a nuclear missile at Israel. Now, 11 of those guys, based in fact and understanding and knowledge, are saying that there is no chance this is going to happen next week, right? So the system they have instituted is 11 people. If 11 people by unanimous consent agree on one thing, the 12th man has to dissent and explore the alternative opportunity in its fullest.
Wow.
that they'll never leave anything to chance. And they will actually have to explore whatever that option is to the fullest, so that no matter how absurd and outrageous it is, there is no way that the unforeseen can happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
I think in football, the 12th man actually refers to when the referee is also on your side. Very pertinent for Israel because, they can just get away with the narrative by killing lots of people because the developed countries are on their side. So the 12th man decision system is pretty accurate.
Wow,
nice.
That's a lot of
praise and criticism. We are balanced.
Yeah, and
sorry, Narendra, go on.
Yeah. So, it's easy to sympathize with Israel because they are constantly confronted with the prospect of their own
annihilation.
Annihilation. So, but there's an interesting train of thought which suggests that had they not been so hawkish, a lot of the problems in the Middle East wouldn't have persisted. But it's one of those counterfactual what if theories, so it's very difficult to say. But yeah, they are in general very hawkish, and it's a last man standing kind of a fight. Only one side can win, though things are sort of getting a little more peaceful. Some countries, some Arab countries are signing peace with Israel, and a lot of that is probably happening because Israel is on a position of strength. So if it was the other way around, they wouldn't have lasted. So yeah, and to the present, this is happening in Vietnam and all these things, and we all know that drones are really very efficient ways of fighting wars, and it's probably the way wars or in whatever forms wars are fought are going to be fought in the future, because they're inexpensive and they have zero factor of safety, so you can really afford to lose them all the time. You can make 1 million of them. You can't make 1 million planes, you can make 1 million drones.
I discovered a pejorative that a lot of traditional armed forces use for people who are drone operators. They call them the chair force. So they're all drone operators are part of the chair force. So yeah. I mean, there's a lot of traditional armed forces actually kind of feel that drone warfare isn't like real warfare, it's like video game warfare in some way, and which has also contributed not only the disdain, but it's also contributed to far more casualties, especially in places like Afghanistan, Iraq and stuff like that, where it's been, I mean, because of the fact that there are none of your people in the field, everyone seems like video game characters, right? There's a person there and suddenly just a puff of smoke.
Yeah, wouldn't be a bad idea to actually have wars as video games. Instead of actually fighting, actually just have a championship. On that note, I think we should take a little quick break and then come back and
see
talk
you on
about
the other side.
More about drones.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IBM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IBM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, CIET, Cred, and Global Victoria. We thank you so much for making all of this possible. So this week on Cyrus Says, Tapsi Pannu was recently featured in the Netflix original Haseen Dilruba was on. They discussed her experiences in Bollywood and a whole lot more. On Begin the Journey, Ashish Vidyarthi enlightens us with his wisdom on how one can get freedom from their own thoughts or insecurities when they communicate with others. On The Millennial Athlete, Tanvi and Shlok fill us in on all the drama from the world of sports with Wimbledon, Euros, and World Test cricket making headlines every day. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav Momoria kicks off a new series, Beneath the Veneer. We travel to the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, where he takes us through his first experience of encountering the Red Sea. We have a brand new show, Misconduct. It's a true crime show hosted by Ragvi, a lawyer, and Nisha, a PR pro. They tell us about the story of Cyanide Malika, the lady who offered cyanide-laden sweets to women and after they die, loot their gold. On the Global Victoria Tech Talks podcast, we showcase some compelling new tech stories coming out of Melbourne. On one episode, Pawan Srinath speaks to Joe Agan from Nelnet International, where they discuss how the pandemic has affected the edtech sector and its evolution. Another episode has Varun Digirala talking to Ross Simons from Big Ant Studios about the gaming ecosystem and how they envision translating a sport to a game. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
Welcome back to Simplified, where Naren is telling us
about drones.
Droning out about drones. Yes, Naren. There we have a title for the episode.
And so
Naren, you've been telling us a lot about drones and warfare and all that. It's really getting us down.
That
now
was,
talk about delivery.
so that was not what we wanted to talk about. All depressing stuff about.
When you say delivery via drones, are you talking about items being delivered, or are they like are machines taking over storks? No, storks jobs. Usually storks used to deliver babies.
Oh yeah,
right?
that would be actually
baby factory in Shenzhen.
Deliveries. I remember one author named Richard Gordon. I used to, he was very popular in my youth. He used to write, a British guy. He used to write very Woodhousian tales about life in a hospital in the UK. So the imaginary hospital was called St. Swithin's. And our protagonist is a guy named Miles Grimsdick, and he is, he's a resident there. He's just either just studying past or just past and working. And his boss is a surgeon named Sir Lancelot Spratt, and he's quite a character, eccentric guy. So things come about. Surgeons, they operate, and it so happens that Sir Lancelot is required. He's the only doctor on the scene, and he has to deliver a baby because someone has gone into a woman has gone into unexpected labor. So someone asks him, Sir Lancelot, you're a surgeon. Are you sure you know how to, conduct a delivery? He says, yes, I've been a medical student. And what is there to remember? You just have to stand in the slips and take the catch. So that is my thing with deliveries. Yeah.
So for all of you who missed this joke in episode 2 and 3, Naren already made
I was wondering why it sounded...
I did?
Yeah. And I also said if he was Sir Lancelot, then he would have needed a leg slip.
Oh,
yeah.
But okay. On this, and continuing slightly with the deviation, there is a wonderful movie called Children of Men. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's about it paints a dystopian future where suddenly the whole human race becomes infertile and women can't conceive anymore, and the human race is slowly aging and dying. And there is a very great in-joke in there where inside the movie there's a guy who's narrating a joke about the situation, about the movie, and he's like, so the world leaders all gather together to discuss why there is this global infertility and try and figure out the reasons for it. So the Americans come forward and suggest some kind of the overuse of technology. The Germans talk about some other solution. Every country's solution is just different. There's an Englishman who's quietly just sitting over there, and they turn to him and they're like, he's quietly sitting and digging into his dinner. And they turn to him and he's like, bro, dude, what do you think? What is the reason for this infertility? He's like, I haven't got a damn clue, but the stork is damn delicious.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that complete deviation.
So delivery, we were talking about deliveries, and more conventionally, deliveries means taking things from point A to point B. And UAVs are suited for that in certain places, eminently suitable. So one of those places are delivering emergency medical supplies. So there is a time dimension, and this happened in Rwanda. So Rwanda is a hilly country, and it has a very poor road network. So most of those places are not well, it's basically just mud tracks. And Rwanda has a big rainy season. So in the rainy season, it's very difficult to go from point A to point B because the roads just become quagmires of mud. So there's this company called Zipline, which made these drones. They're fixed wing drones, large. They're not like the drones which you see on, in weddings these days. You have these little quadcopters carrying cameras and going around. These things they look like planes. They're fixed wing aircraft. They're powered by batteries. And the whole thing is they are autonomous. So you just, punch in the coordinates where you want to go and you shoot the plane and it goes, it drops and it comes. And everything is optimized for speed. So to such an extent, they found that if you just sort of try to boot up a drone, it takes forever to sort of, hook up to the GPS. It's precious second. It'll be a few minutes before it hooks up to the GPS and things like that. So they've put all the GPS into the battery. The battery is on a rack. The batteries are being charged. And you can, it's all linked to the system. The coordinates get fed into the battery, everything, well, the battery is still on the rack. And people are just, assembling the plane, basically just fitting out the plane with whatever needs to be delivered. Most of the times it is blood. So, emergency, if you need a couple of pints of blood, the blood bank is probably somewhere in the capital, and the blood is required somewhere else, and it needs to go really quickly. So they just fit the battery into the plane. Battery's already got all the coordinates, and they put the payload onto the base of the plane, and they shoot it, and it goes to the location. It doesn't bother landing, because in many places there is, the optimum conditions for landing don't exist, number one. And number two, landing is a complicated operation. You have to make sure there is no tree or stone or whatever. So you need a pilot with eyes there. So they don't want to do that. It's completely autonomous. So it goes there, it drops the payload from the air. There's a parachute fitted. That thing floats down. So some human goes and collects it. It takes a U-turn and comes right back. And it's working brilliantly in Rwanda. It's doing life-saving work. And they were going to do similar things in India. I think it's great. A lot of, I'm thinking about places like the Northeast and maybe, interior parts of places like Orissa, places traditionally where it was dense forest. So roads still haven't been constructed. And people live there.
The drones not landing also has the additional advantage of people not capturing it and keeping it.
I was going to save this for later. There's an article I see here that Swiggy is trying to get approval to start drone trials of food delivery. The one comment on that article is, in India, people will start stealing drones after delivery, which is such a hackneyed joke to make. But interestingly enough, Naren, I don't know whether this is what sparked off your interest in this topic, but just yesterday, there was news that vaccine delivery trials are beginning, and they are in the country, and it's set to begin today in a place which is 80 kilometers away from Bangalore. And obviously the DGCA is keeping
that is the airport, no?
Yeah. Bangalore Throttle Aerospace Systems have got approval.
This would be drone vaccine delivery to remote hospitals and medical personnel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or are they self-administering kits?
I don't think they are qualified. They're still not, at a stage where they can be self-administered, because they administered wrong. You don't get the benefits of the vaccine.
Yeah, actually, I can see there's talk about the, it's still not out yet, but there's talk about that the nasal vaccine that's about to be, it's coming through, right? So, it potentially could be in the future where slightly there where this can be airdropped to remote areas and people can self-administer as well.
Yes. So that is going to be a revolutionary, a breakthrough if they have self-administered vaccines, because you can really speed up vaccination process like anything. Right now, the mechanics of organizing vaccination camps. So we've been reading, one of the most depressing things I've read in recent time is how a couple of people duped, housing societies into, paying them money and just giving bum vaccines, fake vaccines.
Wow.
And the people thought they've been vaccinated. They weren't. And that's awful. That's terrible.
But you can't detect it. Right?
Yeah, how would you know? Not everyone who gets the vaccine develops.
So here in Malaysia, there was a conspiracy theory. I don't know whether it has any truth to it, but some people were actually saying that the vaccine, when the vaccine was being administered, a lot of people, some people demanded to see the empty syringes and they weren't shown them or something. And so it's not that they weren't given the vaccine, but they were given maybe half the dose that was required or something like that, because people were trying to conserve it. It was a conspiracy theory largely where people said doctors came on YouTube videos and this thing. But anything that increases vaccine hesitancy, all of these things keep coming out. So I think it's also part of just trying to debunk all of that stuff, because again, you either get the wrong dose. But again, in India, it's very true, because there were there were stories of I was watching Ravish Kumar's show, and he was stories of some lady who was just sitting over there and this nurse was very busy with her phone, and she was just administering it robotically. And the woman was sitting over there. She was administered one dose, and then she didn't leave the seat. She was still adjusting herself and trying to get off the seat. And in the meantime, the nurse came and gave her the second shot also.
Oh,
Straight away, because she didn't realize that person had left the seat or changed. And then she started yelling at her, "Why did you go fast enough? Now you've got 2 doses."
But Naren, how did this drone thing start off in Rwanda? Like, is there some funda behind that?
So yeah, I mean, it was Rwanda was particularly sort of afflicted by lack of people were dying, and someone reached out to this guy who was the CEO of Zipline, and Zipline was just a startup at that point of time. And they decided to see what they could do about it. And they did a lot of that development on the fly. So it just happened, and they managed to raise some funding in the US, and then they did. So it's something that happened just serendipitously.
The best thing about Rwanda is that it has, I think, the highest percentage of women in parliament, some 62% or something.
So that fairly progressive country.
It's a beautiful country. Okay, I've been there. And it's just only to the capital, Kigali. It's just lush green. When your plane lands there, it's just like, it's like landing somewhere in Kerala. It's just like green, lovely, beautiful, and very hilly, lovely weather, excellent. I mean, when I went to Rwanda, I was like, I had all the, Hotel Rwanda thing in my head. There's nothing like that. It's whatever scars are there, they seem to have people seem to have hidden them pretty well.
In fact, I was also reading, I think they're doing the company that you mentioned is called Zipline, right?
Yeah.
So I think Zipline is doing the same thing for Ghana as well right now.
Yeah, and Malawi.
Malawi. And the best part about the thing is it's actually they're coordinating the drones by WhatsApp. So,
yes.
So what they're able to do is like the medical professional at the healthcare center can literally say, I want 130 doses, and a delivery within that, and at that specific drop-off point. And send location pretty much. And at that specific location, those number of doses get delivered.
Wow.
So that, because also it's a concern about the vaccine going bad. So limited number of doses are exactly what you need. And drones can allow for that micro delivery rather than batch deliveries.
Correct. Yeah, the other fascinating thing I saw in the Zipline thing was, so you have it's a fixed wing aircraft, like a regular aircraft, and it has flaps which go up and down, and everything is electrical. And you want to be sure before the plane takes off, all the flaps are working. So all the flaps have QR codes on them, and there is an app on the phone. So you point it to that QR code, that signals to the aircraft. So you're hooked up to the aircraft. It's still lying in your place. The flap goes up and down. So there's the test. Like, the pilot does it when we are taking off. So the flap goes up and down, and the mobile phone sees that. The cell phone sees your flap going up and down. It marks it okay, and it tells you to go to the other flap and point your camera at that. And it does the same thing. So it does a flight readiness check on the cell phone. That's quite amazing.
This reminds me of, essentially that almost wiggling of the flap thing reminds me of, I don't know if you guys know this, but during the Berlin airlift after World War II, the Berlin airlift, because the whole situation was the entire city was being supplied by air because of the Soviet Union blockading West Berlin. When that blockade was happening, there was this one pilot who was like, he used to fly over the airfield, and he used to see a large number of children near the base of the airfield. So he once went and spoke to them after landing. He spoke to those kids, and he gave them like a piece of candy. And they were, the kids had barely enough ration, so they had not seen candy and eaten candy in very long. So they all divided it very nicely and ate it. So he was like really touched by that. And he said, okay, the next time I'm coming, I will drop you guys candy. And they asked him, how will they know? Because in the number of flights that are coming, how will we know it's you? So the guy said, I will wiggle my wings. So he was called Uncle Wiggly Wings. And he used to then afterwards tie handkerchiefs to candy and throw them to kids in Berlin. And it actually became a huge effort where kids in America would like send loads of candy to Germany. And this guy would tie handkerchiefs to it and parachute it all over Berlin to kids to have.
That is
So they were
such an
actually-
awesome story.
Yeah, they were called raisin bombers. It's like raisin and candy bombers. So in post-war Germany, I was just reading. It was such a beautiful story.
Such a beautiful story. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's there's something about the distance record. This popped my eyes. This is way back in 2003. A guy named Maynard Hill, okay, he made a drone and flew it 1,882 miles on less than a gallon of fuel.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that's something, and that's 2003. So it must have improved by now. There's no one else has done this after that.
But drones are not battery operated?
No, not so. Batteries have a very low power to weight density. The advantages of batteries are that the motor, so battery is the fuel and the prime mover is the motor, and that's very simple. And if you have gasoline, then the prime mover has to be an engine. An engine is far more complicated and expensive.
Correct.
And so for military applications, long distance, higher payload, they still use gasoline powered fixed wing aircraft.
Engines.
An electric aircraft can carry very little. Even the zipline thing, the payload is something like 3 pounds or 3 kilos or something. It's not much. It's okay for medical supplies. That's about it. They can carry some 2 or 3 pints of blood. That's about it. So,
and in fact, a lot of these drones also have so they have their own 4G connectivity primarily to relay live temperature of the boxes of the payload that they're carrying, especially with vaccines and even with blood.
Yeah.
So that the temperatures are maintained at a certain level, and it also determines the length of flight they can take before the temperature drops below or goes above the certain level that is acceptable.
Yeah. So it's all optimized for that, basically.
Yeah.
The other kind of drones that people do, which are basically quadcopters and things like that, they are much easier to make. Literally hobbyists, anyone can make it. And they have been used very, so it's the moment is, if everything can be delivered, why not drugs? So the drug cartel was one of the early adopters of this.
Oh, from one kind of drugs to the other.
The other kind, yeah. So illegal drugs. And so a lot of people, and, this is like, the narcotics guys and the drug peddlers, they're constantly battling. What I found droll was people tried to and keep trying to deliver things into prisons using drones. And they use them at night because, usually guards are, they'll go to sleep. So
one of the delivered by our drones is like getting high in the sky.
Yeah, totally. Manna from heaven. So one guy sent a drone into a prison in Ireland, and these people had or they feared a helicopter attack, okay. And people. So they had put wires all across the thing, so that if a helicopter tried to land, that would snag in the thing. So the drone came, and the drone guy didn't know this, and the drone just happened to snag on one of the wires, and it fell, and it was carrying drugs. And when this happened, the prison guards rushed, right, to catch it. But the inmates rushed quicker, and by the time the prison guards came, all the drugs were gone, basically.
Of course.
So, that was very cute.
Amazing. Oh my God. This is the first time a drone has become a mule.
That's it. Yeah. I'm looking at Amazon Prime Air, which is Amazon's, supposed drone to be service. Upcoming drone service. So it's still not gotten off the ground, so to speak. Although
so they were pioneers, sort of pioneers in this thing. They were thinking about that, and the Federal Aviation Authority, which controls air traffic in the US, they were rightly, I believe, very worried about drones just flying without authorization all across the United States. One is because of sheer possibility of accident. If it just happens to get into the
Because the one big problem is, as you mentioned, with the Rwanda and the Ghana zipline guys, they are fixed wing aircraft. Fixed wing aircraft have a lot more stability, and they are able to function well before outside in what is called in drone terminology BVLOS, which is beyond visual line of sight.
Correct.
So the drone can fly beyond what the operator can see it at quite comfortably, and it's well controlled. Whereas when you talk about quadcopters, their stability as well as possibility of malfunction in a BVLOS situation is far higher.
Yeah. And the other thing is that, you can deliver all kinds of lethal payloads, which is a very scary proposition. So one of the things that is worrying people is something called micro UAVs, which are literally insect-sized.
Yeah.
And they can deliver, sort of biological weapons. So if you want to have some lethal bacteria or virus which you want to deliver to a particular kind of thing, you could send it.
Yeah, I mean,
they're very hard to detect.
I mean, now imagine a bug or mosquito-sized UAV that can deliver like a injection of hydrogen cyanide or something into
those kind of things, or even just spy.
That's a spy novel.
That's a spy novel. So, like we were discussing in the last episodes, these things are getting developed, whether you like them or not, or whether they're good for humanity or not. And it's up to humanity to sort of, figure out useful uses for them. The best use case, of course, is to kill a lot of interesting people. And we really hope that doesn't happen. And that's pretty much it from me about delivery drones. It was, I just wanted to sort of, give an overview of what's happening.
You ended on a very bleak note, Naren. I feel like you should find a way to take flight.
We should, But I mean, overall, it's going to be good in the sense that one of the biggest challenges that face many countries, including ours, how the hell are you going to vaccinate people who live far away? They are typically people who live far away from the center of things also tend to be poor people. So they can't really afford to get to big cities and things like that. So drones are going to be very useful.
The positive thing about the micro UAV that you said, instead of delivering doses of hydrogen cyanide, imagine it going and delivering actual vaccine doses to people.
Yeah, so very small amounts. 1 mile, 2 miles. Yes.
There needs to be maybe some consent element to it. But imagine you walking around, suddenly you get like a small mosquito bite and a vaccine is being delivered.
Oh, like you literally hold your hand out and it just falls.
No, you're walking around and aisa machhar ne kaata and you're like, acha, vaccine mil gaya.
Vaccine.
And tragedy would be if somebody swats you with a mosquito bat, like zam.
I know. Arey yaar, 10,000 rupees ka UAV tha, maar diya.
So that's a nice note to end on, I suppose.
Yes. So that's it from us for this week. And catch you in the next week.
Naren, do you want to sign us off?
Yes. Let's sign off by saying stay safe, guys. And
stay up in the sky.
Stay up in the sky.
Sure,
stay unmanned.
Unmanned. Oh, awesome. Yeah, stay unmanned. Stay
or
safe.
Drone on.
Stay unmanned, drone on, and stay simplified. Yeah. Drone on and stay simplified should be our tagline totally.
Excellent. See you guys.
Bye.
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 If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Feeling overwhelmed, anxious, struggling with too many obstacles, don't know where your life is headed? Well, if you are dealing with one or all of these, tune into the Positively Unlimited podcast, because in each episode, I share a life lesson, a life hack, a pro tip that can help you get your life back on track. All episodes are available on the IBM website, IBM Podcast app, or wherever it is that you get your podcast from.